Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Hello.
Hi, Irina.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's nice to have everyone here. While you're coming in, I'm always so amazed how diverse we are, especially around the planet. Um, at least sometimes. Would you just list your location after your name?
Oh, who should has anybody? Okay, so I'm currently in Amsterdam.
Oh,
I can show you
great!
the picture of the water.
Wow,
And
I'm
yeah,
envious.
yeah, but I'm I'm from New York. I teach at a special music school at University of Hartford. So, and my
Great.
name is Irina Nozova. Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Mandela, how nice to see you. It's been a few years.
He's connecting to the audio. I don't think he's heard you.
Okay. Yeah.
Irina, if you click your little name box at the bottom, it'll let you type in where you're from so everybody else can see if you want to.
Ah.
Hi, Cade.
Type.
Cade,
Hi,
are you in Salzburg?
I'm coming from you live from Salzburg.
Will you put Cade Roberts, comma Salzburg or Austria?
Yes, we'll do. We'll do.
But that, how can I don't see. So I clicked on my name. It says mute my audio, stop video, blah, blah, blah.
There should
Rename.
be name. Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay.
Joseph, I haven't met you, but it's nice to meet you via Zoom here.
Hey, nice to meet you too. I'm zooming in from Tacoma, Washington.
Great, good. I have at least on the list. It looks like they're still coming in here. I see some former students of mine and some students from my program. In fact, coming in right now is Danae, whom Danae, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Danae.
Hi.
Danae was the first university student I ever gave a lesson to from about 20 years ago. So how nice to connect with you. Looks like they're still coming in, but we'll start in just a minute. I was telling people though, if you would enter your name and your location, so if you do the rename, I think it's pretty interesting to see our location around the world. One tiny silver lining of this COVID disaster has been these kinds of events, which just makes the world a much smaller and more connected place. I presented at something a few weeks ago, and we had people in, I think, 11 different time zones. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Did you do any teaching of students in like, I don't know, China, Korea this year?
Yeah, I've done some in especially in China. There we go. we could. Do you want to start? Looks like about half people are still supposed to be coming. Oh, give it just a minute. Still coming in.
Yeah, we have quite a few people coming in right now.
Great. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Hello, Hiram.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How's the new baby?
She's great. Doing very well.
Are you sleeping at all?
Lots more than last time. It's better.
Everybody who just came in, if you want to put your location with your name so everyone can see where you're from, that would be great. Should we get started, Dr. Holden? And then
Yeah, why don't we get started? Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to this Pixical Masterclass. We are so excited to have Dr. Scott Holden here today, and we see a lot of familiar faces, which is awesome. But for those of you who aren't as familiar with Dr. Holden, he's currently the head of the piano department at Brigham Young University. And he is a great piano professor. He's had many piano students go off to big schools, highly competitive music schools, and has had national winners. Dr. Holden himself, he's performed in highly prestigious venues such as Carnegie Hall and all over the world. Dr. Holden also teaches each summer at the Juilliard Summer Camp in Geneva, Switzerland. So today, we are also lucky to be able to hear from his expertise. So for the next 50 minutes, we'll turn over the time to Dr. Holden to help us hone our memorization skills. So Dr. Holden, take it
Thank
away.
you. Really nice to be here, and I'm honored to be with this group of great participants. I hope that some of these things, for some of you, we're kind of all levels, and I hope that some of this might be like, well, I know that, and I hope there'll be some things that you haven't thought about so much before, but we're all on the same process. Has anybody ever here been nervous about their memory on stage? Yeah, like every time. And I think most of the things, if I'm at all a good teacher, it's because I always like to say, I've made every mistake possible, and now I get paid to watch people make sometimes the same mistakes. So I want to make sure that they're making those mistakes as infrequently as possible and learning from the wisdom of others. I'm going to do a screen share and start my presentation here. Give me just a moment to get that going. Let's see.
If anyone has questions throughout the course of this masterclass, just put it in the chat box and I'll let Dr. Holden know. We'll also have time
thank you.
at the end.
Or if you want, feel free to interrupt. It's fine. I hope this is informal, and we'll go from there. Sorry, it's just thinking here. Share content. Also, if you're just joining us, if you would just, after your name, list where you're coming from. I think it's beautiful to see our diverse group. Okay, almost got it. Got it. Okay. I love this quote by Michelangelo, who said, if people knew how hard I had to work to gain my mastery, it would not seem so wonderful at all. Yes, it is so much work. And I remember playing a recital once, and I was backstage, but I heard someone leaving and enthusiastically saying, "That was amazing. He must have played that 100 times." I just laughed. I thought, really, 100 times? I wish I'd only played it 100 times. You have no idea how much work it is. And if you ever have been to the Accademia, the Academy in Florence, Italy, you can see the statue of David, and it's an amazing statue for sure. But I thought, to me, almost as interesting, down the hallway there are these other statues that Michelangelo made that were not finished, and you can see the process. As these, I think they call them the prisoners, like they're prisoners in stone, and they're kind of escaping through his hammer and chisel. They're really quite amazing. But memory is a process, and I just want to ask. I mean, this is kind of obvious, but when is the exact point that you start memorizing your music? Anybody?
At the very beginning, I mean, when you just open the music and start learning the piece.
Exactly. Yeah, we play one note. The memorization process is already going, and I think we're all aware of that. But again, our memorization process, in fact, the performance itself is like a culminating stew of everything that we've done at the piano, has the potential to come out on stage, whether it's good or bad. And I find this to be a really common reversal um, in performance and practicing. So my guess is that if I was to go downstairs, I'm in my university studio right now, and go to the practice rooms, I could probably guess that somebody is practicing poorly. Of course, it's not our wonderful university students, um, but it's likely that something like this is happening, and that their practicing is all about the unconscious. It's all about feeling, and they're performing the piece. They're blasting through the piece at full tempo, um, and they're like caught up in those great harmonies or that great melody. They're enjoying the moment, but they're not really practicing. And sometimes, as a result of this, especially prolonged situation, is that when they're on stage, suddenly they become extremely conscious. So their practicing is all about the unconscious. They're just kind of going through it, and then their practicing becomes very conscious, which is a painful situation to be in, where they're actually, they don't want to be on stage. You don't want to be on stage thinking, wait, what is the left hand? The time for thinking is done. Now, good practicing looks like it's all about conscious, almost painfully conscious decision making at every moment, so that on stage we can be, I hate the word unconscious, but we can let our body do what it knows how to do without thinking and getting in the way. I mean, I want to be thinking about a number of things, like what is the color I want here, or voice the alto here. But the time to be thinking, wait, what is the left hand, is long past. This is better said by Jascha Heifetz. Great quote: "Practice like it means everything in the world to you, and perform like you don't give a damn." It's good advice, but unfortunately, sometimes I think that is backwards. And here's my obligatory Venn diagram, which the green circle, we've general anxiety about memory, which I think most people have. If we combine that with poor practice habits, and then combine that with general anxiety about being on stage, we don't want to be in that middle, in the yellow place. That is a terrifying place to be. And I think all of us, including myself, have been there at some point. But if I saw this image online, this is in China. And if you tell someone on a ledge who's afraid of heights, as I am, whatever you do, don't look down. Of course, probably the first thing we're going to do is look down. So I would not do well on this. But in terms of performance in our practicing and our memorization, really what we want to be doing is looking down at all times. We want to be thinking about these things constantly, so we're used to, what I keep talking about the left hand. We'll talk about that more. But here's a little funny clip. This is a clip from the show The Office, and they've been practicing supposedly their fire drill procedure, and this is and then Dwight puts some smoke bombs in there and pretends like it's an actual fire to see what people will do. Maybe you've seen this clip, but he keeps yelling at them about the procedure. Follow the procedure. Yet obviously they don't have any clue what the procedure is. Here's the clip. Anyway, that's not what we want our brain to be on stage, obviously. But so we obviously need to know what the procedure is. Let's we'll be a little bit more serious here. This is a nice this is kind of introduction material, by the way, but this is a nice quote from the late American pianist John Browning, speaking about advice from his teacher, Rosina Levine, about memory. Just pedagogically, my teacher's teacher was Rosina Levine. And let's listen to what he says.
And when she first broached it to me, I really thought she was asking for the impossible. And I now see when I talk to my students, they have the same reaction, that if you say to them, you know, to play the piece through in your head, away from the keyboard, so that you know it is A, it is third finger left hand, it is 16th note, the tempo is allegro, tempestuoso, the dynamic is this, that. If you cannot go through the whole piece that way, you don't know the piece. And you must be able to say, is it A sharp or B flat on the page? You must be able to say mentally where every finger goes. And if you cannot go through the whole piece that way, you don't really know it. When I first heard that, I thought that's some sort of nuclear physics. And then I tried it a little bit, and it seemed very difficult, but it then became a habit. And I realized that what she said was true, that if you couldn't do that, you were not secure in public.
It's a pretty bold statement. If you can't do that, you're not secure in public. But I have to, and I think I was the same way when I was maybe in my 20s and someone had told me something like this. I thought, oh my goodness, that sounds like a nightmare. But no, the nightmare is being on stage and not being able to do that. So I completely agree with him. And today we're going to look at some of those, what he called nuclear physics, or tests to figure out if you know your music.
And when she...
and by the way, a couple of things I'm not going to spend time on, but are really foundational for this process, is your obsession with fingering. And this is just a photograph of a former student of mine's music as he brought it in for a lesson. And what do you notice? And by the way, I should say this student, I taught him a little bit in high school and then throughout his undergraduate. So I had him for about 6 years. I don't remember him in 6 years ever once having a single memory slip, nor really missing notes. I mean, it's kind of obvious. I mean, he's got a finger on every single note, which as I've gotten older, I've become much more obsessive about. And he also has written in, you can see some harmonic analysis and sectional divisions of his music. And we'll talk about a little bit of this later. But there's a strong correlation, the fact that his foundation enabled him to have such a leg up in terms of his memory. And as I look at some of my old scores from, say, when I was 19, and I'm a little bit horrified, like, where is all the fingering? I cannot believe I did not write this in. So this takes a lot of time up front, but I think will save a lot of issues. One other foundational issue, oh, by the way, this is a great student of mine brought this excerpt in, or this piece in. This is Ravel La Valse, and this was her first lesson, so it was ready to go. It just made me very happy. In fact, that student is in this room right now. So obsess about your fingering, and of course, I'm not going to dwell on this, but none of this is going to matter what we're talking about unless you practice slowly. So 2 big plugs for some important things. Okay, now. Our memory is made of multiple integrated kind of supporting parts that are all overlapping. And I think this is old news for most of us. Our muscle memory is a big one. So our fingers just seem to kind of know where to go, especially when we're kids. This is kind of the main, in fact, pretty much the only part of our performance understanding. And then we have like our oral memory, like can we sing the entire piece? Our emotional memory, like, this section is this kind of character, or so forth. Our musical memory, like, where is this phrase going? Or, oh, don't forget the subito forte coming up, or this kind of thing. Our intellectual memory, so our analysis of both the form, the harmony, how the sections fit together, and ideally, and other kinds of memory too, but ideally in our performance, we are at the center point of all these intersections. And I find that, again, if we go back to that bad practice habit, often it looks a lot kind of in the muscle memory world and maybe the emotional memory. Again, they're like performing for themselves in the practice room, but they're not really thinking. And what we want is as much redundancy as possible. So, so at a hospital, they have machines to backup generators in case the power goes out. And then I'm pretty sure they have backup generators for the backup generators. So everything is redundant. If there's one, and in our memory, if one of these forms of memory goes out, then we have other kinds of memory to draw from. Can I just ask you, what do you think is, someone shouted out, what's usually when we're in that bad place on the Venn diagram, what's usually the first memory to function, to go away? Shout it out, anyone.
Muscle.
Yes, muscle memory. And unfortunately, this is such a principal part of our memory system. If this goes away, it can be very jarring. So so here's a series of 10 tests that you can do just to check how you're doing on those other redundant but equally forms of important parts of memory. And unfortunately, I don't know if I've ever really been practicing on my own without anybody watching, and my muscle memory went away, right? Like, this just doesn't happen normally unless we're on stage. So I want to do all these other tests that can get ready for that moment well in advance. And by the way, I gave this lecture a few weeks ago for an online presentation, and it was at a festival I was teaching at, and it was, unfortunately, it had been scheduled the day before they were all about to perform. And I thought, ugh, I don't want to give this lecture the day before they perform because it's too late to do these tests. So I'm glad I can do this now because I want you to do these tests long before you ever have to walk on stage. And also, I do these tests. Some of you are my former students or current students, and some of this will sound familiar. I hope it doesn't bring up PTSD, because these tests are stressful. And my goal when I'm doing them for myself or my students is I want them to fail these tests so they can be awakened and enlightened about what they don't actually know that they think they know. So it's not a source of panic. It's a gift, but it's going to take some work. Okay. This is an easy, obvious starter, but can you play the entire left hand alone of the piece by memory? This is a very difficult test and so essential. In my experience, at least 80% of memory slips happen in the left hand. It's usually because the left hand's being told, hey, shut up, you're too loud, and we're often so focused on the melody and sculpting that the left hand can fall apart. So I won't spend too much time on this, but I've had some students, I can think of one in particular that I said, it was a few weeks before a recital, I said, I'd like to hear your entire recital, but only the left hand, please, by memory. And this is a very revealing test for all of us. Okay, second test. These are called fire exits. And for some of us, I think this is obvious, but in audition situations, I've had this experience where students are auditioning for our program and they get tangled up, say, in their Bach fugue. They come to a complete stop and they look at us and say, can I start again at the beginning? Those of us who judge competitions and such, of course, we always say, sure, but unfortunately, they're red carded at that point. No, you're not going to be accepted, and it's a disastrous event. Now, I am sure the reason there are fire exits in movie theaters is because they had to learn the hard way that when there was a fire, there's not a stampede, and there are ample places to get out of the building instead of just the beginning of the piece, so to speak. So I like to have my students label their music 3 to 4 places every page that they can start, and label them with numbers. Now, once they have them and they know where those numbers are, I'd like to have them do them non-linearly. So I'll say, I want you to play your Bach fugue now but in the order of your phone number. So start at section 4, now section 8, now section 9, now section 2. So it's like they can think of it out of order. And amazingly, when a student has done this, they never need to use those fire exits on stage because they are so secure about their ability to jump around. Okay, I promise these tests get a little bit better. These ones in the middle are a little bit more, I think, significant. Okay, third test. This is what I call the one finger test. I really like this test. Quite challenging, and no one ever did this test to me till I was a Fulbright student in Hungary. I couldn't believe how effective this was, and I was a little surprised after a lot of education. No one had ever tried this with me, and it looks like this. Can I play the each voice with just one finger? And I like to start with the left hand. And this is incredibly revealing. So let's just try this. And I promise, so here's a Chopin Nocturne. Has a very meandering left hand that is kind of patterned, but not totally patterned. And let's just see what we can find. I promise I did not practice this. Let me just play the excerpt. In fact, let me switch cameras here. Right there. Let's see. Oh, sorry. You can see my little box there. Okay, so here's the excerpt. Now, let's see if I actually know these notes. And here's what I do. I'm going to take my pencil here, and I'm going to play the left hand with the butt end of my pencil, or I could do it with like my poker finger, my pointy finger here. And I've lost it. I missed that part. I think I missed that. No, I know it's an F7 chord, but what is it? So I'd say I'm batting about 80%. So I know this at a redundant level about 80%. Well, I want to increase that. And I could do this actually this way with just two fingers like this. This is the one I messed up before. I know it's an F7, but what's that second note? Is that right? Oh, it was right. Now, in that process, I just learned something. Like I don't bankably know that note on the F7 chord in the third measure there. The second note of I was not sure, and I found something in my practicing. So this is a great little discovery, and so easy to do. I also, as you look for patterns, I look for what I would call pattern breaks, and I mentioned that the left hand here seems to be without pattern. It's not totally true. It's just rather meandering, but if you look in and this is a test we'll talk about in a moment, but kind of vertical slices of the fourth beats, you see how it has always the same pattern? That's the first one, second measure, third measure, and then I circled in another color the fourth beat of the other one, which is kind of a cousin of the initial ones. Now, this is a really classic kind of place where your muscle memory seems to know these things, but if you do these, but again, I'm assuming that our left muscle memory might fail. So I try this with one finger or the butt end of my pencil, and it then finds all the problems that I did not realize I actually had. Okay, let's try it another way. And I like this test. And if what I want to do here is play this now with all of the right harmonies and all of the wrong notes. Meaning, I'm going to play the left hand in and what I'm trying to do is test my harmonic understanding of this piece. So let's see. So I believe it starts with a B flat 7 to an E flat major chord. and then I think it's a G7 chord, A flat major, F7, B flat 7. Now, I have to say, I did this about 20 minutes ago, and I failed the test because I hadn't thought of it in harmonic blocks recently. It's a very good test. And again, just note that I'm really focusing on the left hand. So again, the right harmonies with the wrong notes. Here's the test 5. I like this test a lot, and I had been informed of this test by someone who had been living in Manhattan. Oh, let me switch cameras here. Who had been living in Manhattan, and it's such a problem to practice in an apartment building because you've got people, downstairs threatening to call the police unless you, shut up. So they had developed this way to practice that made absolutely no noise, and at the same time revealed all kinds of interesting things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the same excerpt, or I'm going to play this excerpt, but what I'm going to do is play each note as so slowly and so softly that it actually makes no sound whatsoever. By the way, is this still screen sharing? You can see my slide?
We can see
Okay,
it.
good. Okay, good. So this is what this test looks like, and a side benefit of this test is that it also allows me incredible finger control, or to prove incredible finger control. So this is my way to practice this, and what it's really seeing is, do I know things at what I call a molecular level, like this note, and then it's this note, and then it's this note, just as John Browning had just asked us to make sure we can do. So here's the first note. And my goal here is not to make any sound. The trill is going to be very difficult, so I'll leave that out. Too loud. So the A flat, C, too loud. B flat, A flat, G in the left hand, If I make any sound, it's going to be cheating in a way. G in the left hand, B flat, E flat, G. Now, this is not a very glamorous way to practice, and it will drive you a little crazy because it takes incredible amount of concentration. But you will quickly discover if you know the notes, because it has, even though you're using the same fingering, it's at such a glacially slow tempo. There's absolutely no muscle memory feeling about this. So it's like trying to water ski at like 1 yard every 5 seconds. It's just, it feels incredibly unnatural. But you will, and as I was doing that, I discovered, I maybe questioned, wait, when does the right hand come in? Is it with this note or that note? So again, it's a little discovery along the way. Hard test, and will take you a long time to go through your music. But if you really are nervous about a certain passage, I would insist on that. Let's try another one. This is test number 6. I call this the CAT scan. And Frederick Chu had gave some lectures at my university just this past year. This was one of his tests, and I thought, oh, I love it. And a CAT scan is where they take a series of vertical photographs of the body, and a kind of like vertical slice, 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 and then they put them all together to create a 3-dimensional image. And in that kind of process, I like to just ask these kinds of tests, like, what is actually, if I was playing that Chopin Nocturne, like, where is the first fortissimo, or where are the fortissimos? Like, where is the loudest point? And I have to say, I was doing that with a student who plays that very Nocturne quite well, and she wasn't sure, and I was a little surprised because she'd played that piece for years, and I loved her playing of it, but she'd become so familiar with it, she'd forgotten kind of this basic idea, or like, what is the softest dynamic and where does it happen, or what is the lowest note of the piece or the highest note? So this kind of vertical moment, and what I love about this test is that it often reveals not just that knowledge where it happens, but a reminder of like, well, why does it happen there? So a couple of days ago, I was teaching Pathétique Sonata to a student, and I was asking him, okay, the introduction has 2 fortissimos, but after that first page, I said, where's the first fortissimo? And the problem with part of his performance, which was very well prepared, but he was just too loud too soon. And I, was asking him where the first fortissimo was. I wasn't even sure myself, but as we looked, it was like measure 200, and it was quite revealing. In fact, we counted, there were only 6 fortissimos in that first movement, which is often played, I think, very aggressively. And we discovered that they were always in the same kinds of places, usually in places that emphasized the wrong key, especially after the introduction. And then there were 2 at the end. So a revealing test. Or I was asked, where are the pianissimos? And one of them was, there were only 4. And again, there were places that revealed often the wrong key. So they were in a very special position. Sometimes I like to ask my students, because again, the last thing that we want to think on stage is, what are the notes here? It's the same equivalent of don't look down. So I like to ask my students, like, where is your favorite chord in this page? So thinking very optimistically, like what places are you most excited about this harmony? Which note of the melody is your favorite? So, which is also a kind of vertical slice. Anything to get us to avoid thinking of our muscle memory on stage. And we do all these tests so that we can reinforce our muscle memory to some extent, or the redundant parts of our memory when we're off stage. Okay, test 7. This is a fun one. Could we play all of our music with one of our senses disabled? And I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like, and I'm going to just practice a section of Tristan and Isolde. I have to say, back in the good old days when we performed live, I had played a recital in February, and I thought there was so much coughing going on because there were so many people who were sick, and I thought, I don't ever want to give a recital in February again. Everybody is sick and there's too much distraction. But of course, you can guarantee someone's iPhone is going to go off, or somebody is going to drop 85 cents in change out of their pocket. And I remember once being in a recital at Juilliard, and a homeless man, it was midwinter, had come in and was sitting on the front row. And it was in the Liszt Sonata. The student was playing this gorgeous passage, and this homeless man was going through all of his bags, and the pianist actually looked out to the audience and went, "Shh," while he was playing. It was memorable, but inevitably there's going to be some distractions. So let's make as oh, by the way, Arena, you've got lots of experience. I'm curious if anything you're saying here. Roadsides when playing at Carnegie Hall. This is the Kronken House. Yes. Yes. Anyway, there'll be well-meaning people. Sometimes at my university, I see people, family members who are attending their nephews or their cousins' recital, and they bring their 12-month-old who starts crying, and they don't want to leave. Anyway, there'll be distractions. So this is kind of an obvious one, but a fun one. Let's just make some distractions, and I'm going to cue up some James Brown, which I'm going to play incredibly loud. I hope this doesn't blast out your speakers. But while I play Tristan and Isolde, so let's see. So forth. And I hope that didn't blast you. There you are. So, but put on some headphones and put on some hip hop or something that has a really strong beat. I find this especially effective when students are playing Bach fugues. And as a teacher, there's not one moment when I am more nervous about the recital than when they're about to play their Bach fugue. The audience has no idea how difficult it is. Sometimes with students, I will have them play their Bach fugue, and but I tell them, okay, play it for me, but do not stop under any circumstances. And then I just start asking them simple arithmetic, um, or tell them, what is the middle name of every family member in your home, or what is the um, tell me in reverse the order of the presidents, starting with our current U.S. president and going backwards. So it really, what you're doing is actually checking how good your muscle memory is when you have a zillion distractions. Another thing that you could do, which I don't think is necessarily quite as effective, but just try practicing with your eyes closed. One thing I like about practicing or playing with my eyes closed is my ears are a lot more attentive, and it opens up my hearing in a much more effective way. But I actually prefer not having someone listening. I'm sorry, not being able to hear. I also have sometimes brought students over to a digital piano that has a transposing button, and I ask them to play their Bach fugue, and I just press the transposing button, a step, a step, a step, a step, and it's just incredibly disorienting. So they have to rely on, in this case, see how well their muscle memory is, because every other sound is bizarrely distracting. Okay, this next test has a few different components. I like this test a lot because when I do it on myself and when I do it with students, they usually fail this test. So this is what I call kind of vertical or nonlinear practicing, or SATB memory. Those of us who have some teaching experience, I was going to use this excerpt of this. This is a nocturne that is always played by well-meaning, often played by well-meaning high school students who struggle with the left hand. I have, Brooke, you've played this piece as a college student, and you were one of the few who did not have memory slips. But in my experience, 90% of the students struggle with the left hand because it's always kind of the same and yet never quite the same. But I'm going to apply it here to this other Chopin nocturne, which I think is actually easier than the E flat major. This is, instead of playing linearly, where I'm playing everything. So we said, okay, let's practice the left hand alone. I think more revealing is let's only play the bass line and see if you actually know the notes. So what I'm going, instead of playing all the left hand, I'm playing it non-linearly. So I'm leaving out the so-called tenor chords. And now I prepared this lecture, so I know the left hand. And then the last one. But I have to say, the first time I did this, and I've taught this nocturne many, many times, I was, wow, I don't actually know this left hand. I don't know the bass line, and I found some weaknesses. Another way I could do it is practice only the upper chords. This is the problem with this nocturne, is that sometimes they'll play, and the same thing here, is that they'll play the upper chord of the right hand from, say, beat 2 with the bass note of beat 4. So clearly they're not thinking in harmonic blocks. So if I play this with just the left hand alone, I would have, I'm going to try not to cheat here, so I'd have this. And avoid this. This is exactly what I just did. And I started playing the right hand physically in my lap, which triggered my muscle memory. So I'm going to do it here. So there's no way I can cheat, right? So you can see my right hand, it's not playing. Okay, I think that's correct. And I think it's the same. Yep, I was just checking. Okay. And now I'm lost. And I immediately wanted to go back to moving my hand back and forth, which means I am too dependent on my muscle memory at that point. So again, this is a gift. I found something I thought I knew, which I don't actually know. So now another way I could practice this kind of vertical nonlinear or SATB practice is just practice the components of the chords. So if tenor is really made of tenor 1, 2, 3, can I practice just, and the point here is to see if I really know the notes, but also to see if I really know my voice leading. So the left hand, if we call this tenor 1, tenor 2, tenor 3, if I do like tenor 1 and 2, that looks like, is it this? No, there's no, oh, I found something I didn't know. So there's no tenor 2 in the middle there. So it's just this, and then this. I could practice tenor 2 and 3, which would look like what? Now I know that this one's one note, and this note. Now, of course, on stage, this would be the worst possible things to be thinking about. But I want to do this unglamorous work well in advance, so I never have to think about these things. And as I think many of us are here quite experienced, when I'm relearning a piece, that's something I've played many times, and now I'm going to play it in 6 weeks, and I haven't played it for a year. My muscle memory comes back very fast, but all of this kind of memory tends to lag far behind, so I need to really check on these things. In the process, I'll find patterns I did not realize existed, meaning if I play this, I lose track of some of the bigger patterns. Like, it's not that it's a melody, but the left hand has in the tenor line that, which is not a melody, but it just has some stepwise motion, so it makes it kind of melodic. And if I'm just doing chords in this way, I'll probably lose track of that. Okay, let's look at another example of the same approach. This is from Emperor Concerto, and I had been practicing this, and I had this in my practicing. I just could not remember these notes, and it bugged me because it's not a very hard spot. Like, why should I have a memory slip here? And it's because I was like, well, did you? Sorry, is it doing the screen share? Do you see a different excerpt? I don't think you do. That's odd. Let me let me stop the share and redo the share because I want you to see that. Here, just a sec here. Okay, sorry, just give me just a sec here. Oh, for some reason it had signed me out. Okay, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to forget my iPad, and I just want to go from my desktop. I won't be able to see the chat if anything comes up, so feel free to chime in if you need. So let's see, screen share. And desktop. Okay, can you all see? And
No.
no, okay, sorry. Screen share. Okay, now I think you can see. Is that correct? Okay, sorry about that. You skipped to where I was.
I can't see the screen. Can anybody else see it?
No.
Let's see. Let me try that one more time. So screen share. And can you see that?
Still no.
No.
No, we see you.
Okay. Okay. Mariah, will you take the iPad off of
Sure.
the group? So I think it's a Scott Holden iPad. Okay, can you see now?
No.
The iPad isn't on anymore.
Okay. Bizarre. Well, I could potentially talk through this. I'd like to see the score, but I don't want to waste your time. Let's try one more time. Any luck?
Nope.
Okay. Well, well, you really need to see the score. Let me do one other thing. My fear is I don't want to lose my connection. Did that work?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, this is an excerpt from Emperor Concerto, and I've been playing it and just in my practicing, and I had a memory slip. I just couldn't believe it. It's such an easy place. So again, I applied one of these tests, which was, well, what are these harmonic blocks? And the reason I had the slip was because it has the strangest possible notes against the left hand. So as soon as I realized that the left hand's playing D major, then it made sense. And so all I have to do is mentally say, oh yeah, this is a D major over a E flat 4/2 chord with their resolutions. It solved that problem instantly. Let's look at another application of this. This is from, I think these next few are from Emperor Concerto. And I had been, this is, there's the kind of piano quasi cadenza in the very beginning. Then the orchestra plays for about 3 minutes, and which is the most stressful part of the entire piece, because you're sitting there for 3.5 minutes worried about the next 40 minutes ahead of you while you do nothing but sit there in front of the audience. A very simple chromatic scale here. So forth. And as I was playing this one day, I had a memory slip. Now, how is it possible to have a memory slip in a chromatic scale, right? I don't know if that reveals something about me, but it's in part because I played its sister passage that happens about 20 pages later, which starts on a different note. But as I practiced this, I said, well, how well do I really know this? And let's look at some vertical nonlinear approaches for this. So first I said, well, what happens on the downbeats? And as I looked, it became, oh, I've got this note, D, F sharp, B flat, D, F sharp, and so forth. And I wrote in my music, it creates a D augmented triad on the downbeats. And I also wanted to see where is the middle of this chromatic scale, which is the green 3 in the middle on the F sharp. Now, and I also realized, oh wait, of course it starts on a D, because what is D in the context of this piece? It is the, complete the sentence, it is the
Leading tone.
It's the leading tone, right? Once it occurred to me that it's the leading tone, there's no chance I'm going to play it wrong. I also, just in my notes to myself, at the beginning I wrote, this finishes at A flat. So I don't want to get up here and go, wait, where did I get off this note? I can't remember, So I would just, and in a way, a D augmented triad is like the F sharp is the leading tone of G. The D is the leading tone of. So that's a lot of work for a simple chromatic scale, but it becomes pretty bulletproof. And again, having played this piece a few months ago, I felt my most nervous at that moment when that comes in, because I've been sitting there for 3 minutes with nothing to do but fret just a bit. Let's look at another example of this. Now, here is some of Tristan and Isolde, and let's look at vertical slice practicing, and again, kind of non-linear practice. And the point here is what I'm trying to do is get rid of the connecting notes to determine what is the fundamental part of the harmony, which I might only be aware of if I play the connecting notes, maybe you've had this experience with a student when you say, can you start here? And they can't, and they say, can I start a line earlier? I usually, depending on the student, will say, no, start there, because I want to see what they really know, as opposed to like they can only start at certain kind of fires at points. But let's look at this harmony. So here's the excerpt, and I'm starting in the second measure with that E in the bass. So forth. I won't play the whole thing, but now, as I like all of us, when I'm playing slower music, I find it much harder to memorize than fast music because I don't have the same kind of kinesthetic connection, even though that's what I'm telling you to be careful about. And of course, if you have a memory slip in Tristan and Isolde, you might as well hope that I don't know, like and you're gonna be struck by lightning for for such an offense. I'll hope that maybe someone in the audience has an epileptic seizure to get attention away from what just happened on stage. So I don't want to miss anything and risk anything. And in this nonlinear practicing, which might look like this. Now, this is a classic kind of place where the left hand has jumps to a low note, and I sometimes find the student will jump to the wrong note in the process, and when that happens, and I want that to happen in their practicing, to find where these potential problems are. But it shows to me like they haven't thought of the uh, um, maybe the larger pattern, or maybe discovered the larger pattern. And there's an amazing pattern that happens here, and that is, and I would not have noticed this unless I had practiced this way, but it's really important for the piece. There is a 2-octave chromatic descent in the left hand, 2 octaves, with the omission of 1 note, which I'll show you. Now, it's not as obvious because it does this. It's jumping all over the place, but it's not, because it's really doing. Now, I haven't practiced this piece in a while, so I'm going to fail the test. So I don't want to I don't want to bother with that test. But here's what it would look like if I was really practicing this piece. I would play the left hand, just the bass note, maybe with my pointer finger, and with the melody. You'll find that when you do this, because I actually tried this right beforehand and I failed completely because I haven't been practicing this piece, that not only did my left hand get a little bit tangled up, but my right hand got tangled up because I only seem to know the melody if I played the left hand verbatim. Well, that's a crappy place to be. So, so find out what you really know. But as you keep going down this passage, you'll start to recognize, if I keep up where I just finished, that it's moving down chromatically for 2 octaves. Now you'll notice on the right page with the F natural in red, I circled that because it's the only one that left out a note. There's no F sharp behind it, but everything else is moving chromatically. And if I keep going at the red, so forth. So it moved down an entire 2 octaves, which would be very easy to overlook if you were doing all the connecting material. Great test. And I suspect there's one that exists that's longer, but I can't think of any longer chromatic line in the repertoire than this one for 2 octaves, every note but 1. And what a tragedy to miss that if you haven't practiced this way. Okay, so again, vertical slices can reveal a lot when you leave out the connecting material. So you're really finding out the kind of the bones and the structure, and finding out what you don't know. Let's see. next test. Okay, these last two are ones that are, I think, kind of obvious, but ones that I hope you would have done well in advance. Not so much as you're checking for things, but as you've done your work. This is what I call wormholes. Now, and this is an excerpt from Emperor Concerto. I was playing it one day in my practicing, and I was at measure 438, 439, and then suddenly I was at like measure 120. What? How did that happen? I just went back like 15 pages. Can you imagine a more horrifying event on stage with an orchestra? And you'll notice I wrote a few things in my music. Now I call these wormholes. Apparently in astrophysics, there is some theory, I don't quite understand it, but like that it's possible maybe that there are parts of the universe that if you go through this one kind of exit, you'll wind up in another part of the universe instantly. And they're called wormholes. And these are so important to find in your music. I want to find everyone on stage, and I'm sorry. So I'm not not finding them on stage. And when I find them, I feel like I found gold. So I always write them in my music. And here at measure 440, it says DIF, and it says different than measure 187. And at measure 187, I can promise you it says different than measure 440. And you'll notice that up above it says TA. That to me stands for think ahead. So this is not in this music, but about 4 measures earlier, it also says TA with an arrow, like this thing is coming. So very important to remember that. And the difference is that, and then the next one does here, goes an octave up. In its sister passage, it does an octave lower, and then you're in the exposition, not the recap. So, and when I'm learning this, I think this is an important thing. I'm learning this not for performance in 2 months. I'm also learning for eventual performance maybe in 10 years when I play it again. And I do not, again, my muscle memory will come back, but all of these kind of more intellectual memories are going to be slower. So I write them in my music. I've discovered something, which is a fancy way of saying, if you're not practicing with a pencil, you're being idiotic, because practicing is all about fact-finding and problem-solving. And I want to write down everything I find, because I'm not going to remember it in 10 years. I might not even remember it 2 weeks from now. So write it down. You found something along the way. Okay, this last test is a real easy no-brainer, but make sure, obviously, you are taking your music out for what I call a test spin. And I assume that when I have a new piece, I'm going to have problems in my first handful of performances, and I want to find out where those are. So get your friends together and play for them, and assume there's going to be problems, and then double check. I appreciated, speaking of Rubinstein, that he had stated something like, the first half dozen of any performance I give of a new piece will be problematic, and after that point it'll start to settle in. So I know my own students, when they're about to play a recital, maybe within about 3 weeks before, I say, okay, now I want you to play your recital 10 times before you actually do the actual performance, and find out where your thin ice is. Interestingly enough, I read an interview with Alexander Terrazza, the pianist who had won silver prize in Van Cliburn in about 1980, 1976, something like this. And he said his weakest round was when he played Gaspar and Liszt Sonata. He said, I had played both those pieces a zillion times, but I'd never actually played them back to back. I should have ran it that way a few times just to get used to that feeling. I really appreciate hearing of highly successful people who turned out are just as human as myself. So whether it's Rubinstein or Terrazza, but of course I would never go on stage and not have tried it out. I think we all know that. Okay, those are my tests here, and if you want, I think this lecture will be posted online so you can review it again. But if you just want to do a screenshot of this, you can just I've listed them all here, and if you can't remember, you can go back and I'll see the video and I discuss those things. So And again, there's that quote: "If people knew how hard I had to work to gain my mastery, it would not seem so wonderful at all." And maybe you've had this experience. You play a recital, and people come and greet you backstage, and they're well-meaning, and they say two statements that drive me crazy, although I appreciate their enthusiasm. One is, "I can't believe you play that all by memory." And it bugs me because I always feel like, really? Like I worked hard and it was a circus trick. So I was trying to create something bigger than that. But yes, it is pretty astonishing what we do. And I think and I want to say you have no idea how hard I work to do this. And sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I would give anything to play the piano like you." And I always think, tell you what, give 40 years of your life. Or they say, "How come I can't play so well?" And I think, well, you would if you had the right training and you had some level of talent and worked insanely hard. So it's but yeah, it's not as wonderful as it seems because they have no idea how much work it actually takes. By the way, the other thing that drives me crazy is when they say your fingers move so fast. It's like a blur. It's, it's not an Olympic sport. So but anyway, there's that list. As I conclude here, do you have any questions for me? Debbie.
What is your advice for maintaining memory over a long period of time?
Like how long and for what?
Well, maintaining pieces so that you don't forget how to play them after you play them in a recital, and like a few months later, a year later, someone's like, "Hey, what's that piece you played?" And you're not like, "I have no idea."
Well, if I understand your question correctly, I guess it would be this. The longer we play something, the more natural it becomes, and it becomes infused deep at our muscle memory. And it's a dangerous place to be. So there are certain pieces I've played since I was 18 that I feel like I could pull out pretty much at any moment and play pretty successfully with or at least feel successful with even 10 minutes of practice. Schumann arabesque, I've played this piece a billion times, and I feel like I could pretty much play it right now. It's at my kind of cellular memory of my body. But I guarantee you, it's a dangerous place to be because I know it so well. I can feel every note in the opening. This Rachmaninoff etude I've played a billion times. I feel pretty comfortable with it, but because that's a dangerous place to be. So if I was really going to bring it on stage and not just like, "Oh, Scott, play something," but a formal program, I would want to apply every one of these tests to see if I actually know these notes because it's too much in my muscle memory, and again, my muscle memory doesn't fail me when I'm practicing on my own. So I want to make it fail by doing these tests. I don't know if that's a good answer for you, but I think also my memory does well if I have to really maintain something for a long time. When I work on it and I put it away for a few weeks. Because I'm not really going to play something for, I don't know what a long time is, a year and a half straight. And there's something about my subconscious that keeps going in practicing away from the keyboard. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but so my main answer is try these tests. Another question? Oh, Mandela. Hi, Mandela. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. It's been quite a while. I have a question. Yeah, it's been really long. So like for me, whenever I like learn a piece, like when I started playing piano, I didn't like learn theory and everything, and I just like everything I play is like mainly focused on muscle memory. So like, how would you like advise that I try and think of it like in like other ways, like through harmonies and all the other like criteria you were talking about? Because like, I mean, I don't have a lot of memory slips, but like I remember when we were in Switzerland, we had to play the trio. Like I was the only one not looking at the sheet music because I already like knew everything. But then that kind of became a little complicated with like dynamics, just playing the piece. So how would you advise that?
Great question, and my answer is not necessarily an easy one. But I would say this: if you were to walk into a university music theory class, I can pretty much guarantee you the people with the highest grades in that class will be the keyboard players, the pianists, because whether you've had training for it or not, we think harmonically. Now, I think you need some training for this, but and probably the I hate to say it, but probably the worst people in the music theory class will be the singers, because for them it truly is they can't touch an A flat augmented seventh chord. But you tell me that A flat French six, I can already feel it in my first thing. I can feel those notes. It's such a physical thing. If possible, and I think you're headed to college soon. Is that correct?
I'm heading to college
Man,
this year.
Ella, you've grown up. It's exciting. Where are you headed to?
University of Toronto.
Oh, wow, that's great. Well, if you could, frankly, if you could go backwards in time, what I would say is see if you can take an AP music theory class. A lot of high schools offer them. But you don't necessarily have to do that. If you know the nuts and bolts of how to determine what a harmony is, you might start with just very simple exercises like you could take Bach chorales and write in the name of each harmony, and then apply that same principle to your repertoire, and circle. Sometimes I've had students do this. I'll say you probably won't know every harmony, and if you don't, circle it, and we'll talk about it. But just do that for like 5 minutes a day. This also increases your ability as a sight reader. It increases a number of things, but keyboard players are the most harmonically driven because we have to play so many notes at the same time, as opposed to a non-harmonic playing instrument. Here's a kind of horror story, and years ago, a student was auditioning for my program here at my university, and the student said they were going to play Beethoven Sonata number 23. And we looked at each other like, I don't know what Sonata number 23 is. Here, I can get rid of the share here. And so I said, what key is it in? And they said, D major? And I thought, I don't think there's a D major around there, but we think of them as opus numbers, not as the number within 1 through 32. And I was trying to get a sense of which movement to ask them. I said, okay, just start the first movement. And she began to play the D major sonata that sounds like this. Now, that revealed an ocean of information. Now, the strange thing was she actually played the piece, the Passionata, which is in F minor, pretty well. But it revealed, like, how on earth do they navigate a piece like that, which is a kind of Mount Everest, so to speak, of piano sonatas? They must think of it. I push this note and then this note, and my fingers know where to go. Oh, what a disaster. And freakish that she could play it actually at a physical level as well as she did, but had no capacity to organize things harmonically. So that's not a very nice answer. But Mandala, I want you to do this as soon as possible. Start writing in your harmonic blocks. Just 5 minutes a day. Take this Bach prelude. C major, D minor 7, G7, C major, and write those in. And as I don't know what your piano future will look like, but keep writing these things in. And if you're not sure how to find out what those things are, ask your teacher. Many of us here are teachers, and there's not always time to cover these things in a lesson when we're trying to deal with the logistics of playing like that difficult passage in the Passionata. At that point, like this should be old knowledge. This student reminded me of, you hear about the student who graduated from high school and is still technically illiterate. Like, how did that happen? This student was playing this hard piece and was technically illiterate, and kind of tragic. So I kind of want to say, get your money back from your teacher who allowed this to happen. But anyway, it happens.
All right, thank you.
I don't think the ability to think in harmonic blocks is a talent at all. I think it's just a basic skill set. So nice to see you, Mandela. You've grown up. It's been a few years. Any other questions?
I have a question, Dr. Holden.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a student who is preparing a recital and they should be doing all of these 1 through 10? It's a little overwhelming. So which one do you start with first, and how do you divide up your pieces? Because there's only so many hours in a day, but what does that mean?
Well, the last thing, again, what I want to do is spring any of these tests right before they perform. It is, this should have happened months earlier. And usually when, I just find if a student has a memory slip in a lesson, I mean, I don't want that to happen, but I kind of want it to happen because I just want to see where the weak places are. So then I start probing, and Mariah is my student. So I've done this with you, and Mariah is a fabulous, fabulous pianist. Big technique, fearless, just terrific. And we've done this where I said, oh, now play that Chopin prelude, B flat minor with one finger in the right hand. And you've done it a million times in the natural way, but you haven't done it this way. And it failed, which was what we wanted to happen. So to see if you really know the patterns and so forth. So I don't know if I have an order per se. My order would kind of look like where we started with, did they write in the fingering and are they consistent? In terms of the sections, my fire exits, I try and just choose natural starting places. So places that feel like a cadence or, something different happens. A new section, obviously. I don't know if I'd have an order for these per se. I think it depends on the situation, and I would use these as tools to probe if they have a slip. And even if they don't have a slip, I might have them do this. Chopin, for the finger pointing, I think is very helpful because he'll have a passage that is let's say, sorry. That is kind of chromatic, kind of arpeggiated, kind of a scale, and it's a hybrid of things. And yes, the student has done this a million times, but they've never done it with one finger, and it reveals, oh, it's actually kind of a chromatic loop around with a C sharp minor arpeggio, now a scale, loop around, C sharp minor arpeggio. And so it gives them a way to process it in a way that mere muscle memory does not reveal. An order, I don't know, and I think it's student dependent. Like I said, some of you know Spencer Hodgson. He was my student for a few years. He was the one who never had memory slips and never had missed notes because he was so well prepared in his preparation. So some of these tests I might not need to do. I can think of students I can think of one student from many years ago who benefited and needed to benefit from these tests a lot all along the way because I think it was very just kinesthetic and not thinking of harmonic blocks and of their left hand. So it's kind of a lame answer. Student dependent, but use these as good resources. By the way, one that I didn't list, I remember a teacher saying to me, you should be able to write down your entire piece away from the piano. I agree. Have I ever done that once? No. There's not enough hours in the day. And probably I was a little fearful of how badly I would fall on my face, but because that's a hard test. But that would solve a lot of things. But in 45 years of playing the piano myself, I've never done it once, although I know I should. So Debbie.
Have you ever passed all the tests on a piece?
Hopefully, eventually, yes. Have I ever passed them along the way? No, I always fail them. I want to fail them. I want to find out where the things are that I don't know, that I thought I knew. So, but eventually, yeah, like John Browning said, if you can't say, then it's my third finger on F sharp. then it's my fourth finger on G sharp away from the keyboard, then yeah, you don't really know the music, or you're not level. I'm sorry, you're not ready for that level of situational tension. So they build a building in Florida, not for the lovely typical 80-degree and sunny day, but for the Category 5 hurricane that inevitably is coming. So, other questions? Okay, well, it's so nice to see you. This feels a bit like a reunion. I know so many of you. And nice to have those. Joseph, nice to have you here. Nice to meet you. Rena, nice to see you. And William Spears, I don't know you, but nice to have you here too. I
He's
think
my
there were some
student.
others. Oh, great. Good. Okay. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. There were maybe some things you haven't thought about you can try. Again, don't panic if you can't pass the test. That's what you want to do, and find things that you don't know. I guarantee you'll find things that you didn't know if you do these, and ultimately you can be in that quadrant of what Josh Ivett said is don't give a damn on stage, meaning like you're just putting it out there and enjoying the music, and you're not thinking about your thinking. Maybe you've had this experience where you think about your walking, like, oh, that's painful. Which body part goes to go, my heel or my foot? You know, I've never thought about it. This is not what you want to be doing on a stage, is thinking, what is the next note? The time for that has passed. But if you think about these things and your practicing becomes extremely conscious, then you can be in this more flow state where you're reacting to the moment and not having to think. All right, thank you so much. Lovely to see you all.
We have
Thanks for
a few
joining.
announcements. Is that okay, Dr. Holden?
Yeah, please.
So thank you so much for this masterclass. That was wonderful. I know that I have a lot of things I need to go do to test my recital that's coming up. So this next coming Monday, we have Dr. Swigger, who's coming to give a masterclass on how to perform with excitement rather than nerves. So it goes along really well with Dr. Holden's masterclass. So if you're interested in that, you can register on the Pixical website. And thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Nice to see you all.
Take care. Ciao.
Dr. Holden. Oh, somebody's still here.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thanks for your help, Mariah.
You're welcome. Dr. Holden, I've been at home, but I'm going to be back at school this week. So if I can, I'll schedule lessons with you. I haven't been in Provo, so that's why I haven't been reaching out for lessons. So
It's totally fine. When you're ready, let me know. So
okay. Thank you.